The Last Seduction is a 1994 release neo-noir thriller directed by John Dahl.
Yes, stars Linda Fiorentino. Did I get that right?
I think
so.
you did, yeah.
As Bridget. She works in like a telemarketing place in New York, and she's married to Clay, played by Bill Pullman, who is a doctor. At the start of the film, we see him doing a drug deal, selling some pharmaceutical cocaine for I think it's about
$700,000.
Yeah. So and he comes home with the money, and she does a runner with it while he's in the shower. So and she runs off to cow country, as they call it, and stops off. I think she's on the way to Chicago, I think, isn't she?
Yeah,
But she
is,
stops off for gas and then ends up in a bar. I think she talks to her lawyer, who advises her to lay low because obviously her husband is going to be looking for her. Yeah, and in the bar she meets Mike, who's played by Peter Berg. We learn he's recently returned from Buffalo, I think. He's trying to escape this small town because he feels that if he stays there, he's going to be stuck there forever. And he sees this woman who's obviously from out of town and is immediately intrigued by her, particularly when she's quite abrupt and rude to the bartender. Yeah. So he buys her a drink and tries to talk to her. And initially she rebuffs his advances, but then puts her hands down his pants to sample the goods, so to speak. And their relationship starts from there, really. And
yes,
she's hiding out in this town while her husband obviously tries to look for her. And she's, well, how do we put it?
Which is femme fatale. I mean, we are in classic neo-noir.
Yeah.
We're in classic noir territory. I mean, a film like Double Indemnity is basically what this is, where the femme fatale uses her looks to gain the trust of the male counterpart, and then uses him, manipulates him to her wanton desire, and gets what she wants.
She does.
Or does she?
Well,
you have to watch the film to find that one out. I mean, that's what this film is, and it's neo-noir, so it's a modern take on that kind of noir story.
I mean, what I would say is it's almost like it's a sort of gender swap role before they were popular, because her character is pretty much the male character, really. She's in control, she's calling the shots, knows exactly what she's doing, and constantly has whatever occurs, she has a plan to deal with it. And you don't really see her vulnerable at all, maybe a couple of times in the film. Even then, sometimes she's faking
it.
Yeah,
you're not sure if she's,
So, well, we won't talk too much about it because
we don't want to give any spoilers away. I mean, it's really good, actually. I forgot, I hadn't seen it for a long time. I get this one and Jade mixed up a lot because it's the same. It's Linda
Fiorentino.
Yeah, her. I can't never pronounce her name very well. But it's the same actor, and she's in both William Friedkin's Jade, which is darker than this film.
Yep.
But it's good. It's good while not being too dark. Actually, this film is quite light-hearted, and it's also kind of, because I mean, so on Wikipedia it is kind of labelled a neo-noir erotic thriller, and of course in the 90s we had a lot of erotic thrillers that came out, kind of I suppose off the back of Basic Instinct, so we had Body of Evidence, and then there were loads.
Sliver,
loads of them that came out. I mean, the 80s had lots of them too, but the 90s seemed to be quite a tacky decade for erotic thrillers. But
I don't think this is.
No, it's not at all. And in fact, I was reading, it's quite interesting that the producers that's what they were expecting, a kind of a bit more of a kind of skin flicky, tacky, erotic thriller, and the producers and the director of this one knew they wanted to make something maybe a little bit more progressive and a bit more arty, and so they kind of kept shush about what they were actually doing. I think this film's great, and I think she's really great in it. There's actually a wonderful moment which kind of I suppose sits quite well for the Me Too movement. Is when he's kind of pestering her, and he's talking to her. He's not really pestering her, but he's talking to her, and they go into this building that they're both working at that point. I think he catches her behind. She slams him away, and then basically to the whole building says, she tells him to F off, and then she goes, to the woman behind the secretary behind the desk. Did you see that? It's a really great moment, and she just storms off. And I think she says, we're living in like, what is it? We're living in the dark ages or something.
Yeah, something
and
like
that's
that.
20 years ago. So, I thought that was really interesting. It's definitely a noir film. I mean, noir, obviously, the term noir came from, I think there was a couple of French journalists that came up with it for a film in the 50s. And it was specifically because back then films were black and white, so noir means black.
Yep.
And it was lots of shadows and playing with light and obviously the kind of the seedy underbelly of society. That's where that term comes from. So yeah, so it is. So there is obviously it's not a black and white film, but there are there is noir in there in both lighting and in tone as well.
Yeah.
I think. And I think it was. I was actually because I hadn't seen it for years and years. I was like, I hope I like this one. I did. I really enjoyed it, and I'd recommend it if you do. And it's not overly erotic either. I mean, we did mention that it was listed as that, and obviously they tried to make something a bit more arty, but it's not. I mean, it's obviously a couple of those typical 90s slow-mo sex scenes in there, but they're not like it's not like every 5 minutes.
No, there's nothing gratuitous in there,
and it doesn't go on and on and on. They're quite quick, so it's quite nice. Got a great cast, Peter Berg. I've always enjoyed his performances. Obviously, the director now. He's done Patriots Day about the Boston bombing. He did that recently. He also did films like Very Bad Things.
Yep.
I think that was the first directed film. But he's also turned up in some. He's a great actor as well. He was in Shocker, the Wes Craven film. Yep. He was in Very Bad Things. And he's also in one of my favourite sci-fi films, A Fire in the Sky. Have you seen that one?
I'm not sure.
We need to watch and do that one because I absolutely love that film. So he's a great actor. And then obviously Bill Pullman, Spaceballs.
Yeah.
And other films. Some great films. What's that? He was a Wes Craven film as well, The Serpent and the Rainbow.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good film. Terrifying.
Independence Day.
With a spider. Independence Day. Of course he's in that. Yep. And loads of things. Yeah, and there's other J.T. Walsh is in this film.
Yeah.
He's kind of, a lot of interesting kind of character. He plays quite seedy.
Oh, yeah, he was one of my favourite back in the 90s. He was in lots of similar kind of films, and I always enjoyed every performance of his, and I think it was a real shame, he passed away far too young. Course, it was a real shame, I think, because he was just a great character actor. Always enjoyable to watch, and he's not in this a great deal, and he's just behind a desk for the whole time, every scene that he's in. Always, no, he was always great to watch.
And also Bill Nunn, of course, who was in he was in Do the Right Thing and the Spider-Man trilogy.
Yeah, the Sam Raimi one. Yeah,
the Sam Raimi one. Yeah, and I think he was in a couple of Spike Lee films actually. Who also passed away. He passed away a couple of years ago. You're quite young, way too young as well.
As we mentioned at the start, it's directed by John Dahl, who I think he did a handful of similar kind of films. I think just before this, he made Red Rock West, which stars Nicolas Cage and some other people.
There's a couple. I think J.T. Walsh from this is it.
I think he is, isn't he? Yeah. Which is another. I think it involves a bag of money at some point, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it's and Nicolas Cage hiding out in the town. I can't remember. Anyway,
can you see it?
Yeah, the DVD is readily available, pretty cheap. I recently picked up the Blu-ray, which was released by Network.
British. Well,
yeah, it is. Yeah,
they do a lot of British films.
They do, films. And it's a nice 2-disc set. You've got a booklet in there as well. One of the discs is a DVD, and that's got the director's cut on it, which I think basically puts the deleted scenes back in. Unsurprisingly, but I'd prefer the theatrical version personally. And it's also got an episode of Fallen Angels, which is directed by John Dahl as well on there, and commentaries on the director's cut, and some making of, some behind the scenes stuff. All the standard stuff. So quite a nice package. What I would say though is that on the Blu-ray, the picture isn't great. It really needs some sort of restoration of some sort, because there's a lot of digital noise in the background of some of the shots, and it's not the best. It's probably better than a DVD, but not by a huge stretch, to be honest. It could do with a bit of work. And also the soundtrack on it, I watched it in 5.1, and the music seems to be quite high in the mix, and the dialogue was very low. So it does have a stereo soundtrack on it, so I would recommend that, because all the dialogue was far clearer. for you audio nerds out there.
Well, that was The Last Seduction. And if you know the film, let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear what you think of it. Or if you take our advice and go and check it out, come back and then let us know what you think of it. Are you a fan of erotic thrillers in general, or neo-noirs? Which ones do you like? Yeah,
let us know.
Let us know. Indeed.
Subscribe to the channel, obviously.
Yeah.
And check us out on Twitter and Facebook. And we've got some more videos, so have a look at those. There's some links below or coming up or whatever, wherever we decide to put them this week. And we'll see you again soon for another video.